You are not imagining it. Some people do not control you with force. They control you through patterns you never notice. This channel reveals the hidden psychology behind manipulation, influence, and human behavior. Watch closely. The moment you see the pattern, you stop being controlled. We usually picture manipulators as loud, arrogant, and impossible to miss. But the most dangerous threats slip in quietly. They arrive disguised as the one person who finally understands you. They learn the exact weight of your insecurities. They map out the emotional wounds that still dictate your reactions. Instead of shielding those vulnerable areas, they carefully turn that intimate knowledge into a tool for leverage. We are often told that toxic individuals lack empathy, that they are emotionally hollow and unable to read other people. The reality is much sharper. Their influence relies on a hyper-tuned ability to sense your discomfort, spot a moment of hesitation, and name your deepest fear before you even find the words for it. When someone names a fear you've never spoken aloud, it feels like an act of rescue. You stop looking for exits and start looking to them for validation, mistaking their clinical observation for a protective alliance. Psychologists don't classify the dark empath as a clinical diagnosis. It is a specific, recognizable behavioral pattern. The profile emerges when elevated dark personality traits exist alongside highly accurate emotional reading. On one side, a deep capacity for calculation and a drive for control. On the other, mirroring absorbs your feelings, feeding raw data directly into those strategies. This combination creates a perfect camouflage. When you meet them, they don't trip a single wire in your natural threat detection system. They infiltrate your life as a patient listener, using high-resolution understanding to bypass every defensive instinct you have. A classic narcissist exposes their motives early. They need to dominate the room, talk over everyone, and constantly extract admiration from the people around them. The dark empath operates in the quiet spaces. They hold back, ask highly specific questions, and keep the spotlight entirely on you. They act as an emotional archivist. They remember minute, seemingly insignificant details about your life, filing them away to deploy at a more strategic time. All of this intense, focused attention engineers a powerful reaction. You begin to feel uniquely selected and deeply, undeniably seen. Believing you have finally found someone who truly understands your inner world, you voluntarily dismantle the psychological boundaries you spent years building. The second you feel entirely understood is the moment the trap closes. By mapping your pain, they identify the specific triggers that govern your behavior. They now hold the levers. They know exactly which string to pull to make you apologize when you've done nothing wrong, what it takes to make you chase their approval, and how to force you into silence. This meticulous data gathering is designed to engineer dependency, cultivating a paralyzing fear that you might lose the only person who truly knows you. This sequence follows a calculated, repeatable rhythm. It moves through 4 distinct phases: the reading, the bonding, the testing, and the control. To protect yourself, you need to recognize which phase you might already be in. Most of us view human connection as a shared experience, but it is possible to treat social interaction as a purely technical environment, one where emotions are processed as cold external data points. We often make the mistake of assuming that if someone can accurately describe what we feel, they must also care about what we feel. To understand the danger, we have to look at affective empathy. This is the emotional resonance that allows one person's pain or fear to move and impact another. It is the weight of someone else's experience being shared. This diagram compares that shared resonance with cognitive empathy. This second system is purely mental and strategic. It is the ability to map your emotional state with clinical precision while remaining entirely disconnected from the feeling itself. This creates a dangerous blind spot. A manipulator can decode your every move and motivation while remaining completely devoid of compassion. In the early stages of a toxic dynamic, the dark empath quietly maps your psychological landscape. They are listening, but they are also cataloging. When they recognize your fear or insecurity, they are simply gathering information. Clear recognition of your pain rarely translates into a desire to be gentle or protective. Possessing a perfect map of what hurts you means having the exact schematic of the words and actions required to break you. They look for specific high-yield vulnerabilities, your fear of abandonment, your intense need for approval, and the specific things that make you feel guilty. These function as structural weaknesses, the specific points where a person is easiest to fracture. In this context, deep psychological understanding serves as the precise identification of a target. Deep conversations that feel like intimate connection often serve a secondary, silent purpose. They are moments of covert intelligence gathering. Every detail of your personal history, your triggers, and your old wounds is collected and categorized. They probe for operational data. They want to know why you struggle to trust and exactly what your past partners did to cause you trauma. Because you are being vulnerable, this aggressive search for leverage looks exactly like profound closeness. This timeline tracks how a shared secret travels. A fear of betrayal shared in confidence today can be weaponized 6 months later. They might avoid repeating your ex's mistakes directly, but they will use that same fear to control your behavior in a cleaner, more subtle way. If you share what makes you feel safe, they can monopolize that source of safety. They become the only person who can provide it, and then they can withdraw it to punish you for questioning them. Every secret you surrender becomes permanent psychological leverage. The final phase involves feeding this gathered intelligence back to you to close the psychological trap. Their most seductive weapon is emotional accuracy. They demonstrate an uncanny ability to see through your defenses. They will diagnose your hidden motivations, telling you that your strength is a mask for your pain, or that you push people away because you are secretly terrified of being close. These diagnostic statements are often factually correct, which is what makes them so difficult to escape. The trap snaps shut the moment a person equates factual accuracy with truth, and then mistakes that truth for safety. Not every instance of deep emotional insight is a sign of a predator. Most people use their understanding to build connections, not to dismantle them. High emotional intelligence is a tool, and it is misleading to label every painful relationship with clinical terms. The real red flag is a repeated behavioral loop. Watch for patterns where emotional understanding is consistently used to gain an upper hand. You can see this loop in action when personal secrets are systematically converted into psychological pressure points designed to bend your will. When the profound experience of being seen slowly but definitively transforms into the reality of being managed, the relationship has been replaced by a strategy. For someone who has spent years feeling unseen, there is a profound, addictive relief in finding a witness to your internal chaos. The dark empath doesn't rely on the grand gestures of a typical love-bombing phase. Their approach is built on a quieter, emotional precision. They listen with a specific kind of intensity. They ask the questions others ignore and remember the small, personal details that everyone else has forgotten. This creates what we can call an empathic addiction. It feels like a chemical dependency on the sensation of finally being understood. This strategy bypasses standard logical defenses. Because the initial contact provides such deep validation, It is perceived as ultimate safety. We can think of this as the Ripley Effect, the ability to study a person so closely that you become the exact fulfillment of their needs. This goes beyond mirroring hobbies or personality. It is a forensic mapping of your tastes, your values, and your specific emotional language. They mirror the missing piece of your psychological puzzle. If you fear abandonment, they become consistent. If you fear being judged, they become exceptionally accepting. This perfection is temporary. As the bond solidifies, that warmth begins to carry subtle conditions. By presenting themselves as the specific cure for your deepest wound, they ensure that walking away feels like losing the only person who truly sees you. Once the bond is established, the phase of calibration begins. This is where they determine the limits of what you will tolerate. They introduce subtle provocations, a delayed reply, a joke that cuts too deep, or a sudden withdrawal of affection. They then observe your response with clinical detachment, watching how you navigate the sudden change in their tone. They are looking for specific data. Do you challenge the behavior or explain it away? Do you apologize or chase their approval? These reactions map your internal landscape, showing them exactly where your boundaries are weak and where you are most susceptible to pressure. Every time an insult is ignored or an apology is offered for their behavior, you provide the information they need to establish long-term control. With your vulnerabilities mapped, they begin to strictly regulate your access to validation and closeness. This starts a cycle of deprivation. They flood you with attention, abruptly remove it, and then grant it again only when you seek it out. You might be deeply comforted one day and met with icy distance the next. They may even use your shared secrets to later label you as too sensitive. This cycle triggers a survival mechanism in the nervous system. It begins to prioritize the return of the safe version of the person over the reality of the current mistreatment. Emotional dependency is locked in as the brain begins to chase the high of that initial perfect understanding, even as it becomes increasingly rare. When conflict eventually occurs, the dark empath doesn't strike randomly. Instead, they use an incredibly precise, highly calculated approach. They press against the pre-mapped insecurities, abandonment, shame, or guilt, just enough to destabilize you without appearing overtly aggressive. They use specific, targeted phrasing. "This is why people leave you," or "I knew you would react like this." Because these words are tied to the real pain you shared during the seduction phase, they cause an immediate internal crisis. Faced with this targeted pressure, the focus shifts. You stop trying to maintain your boundary and start struggling to defend your core identity. In this dynamic, empathy isn't used to connect, but to locate the exact position of the wound so they know where to apply the pressure. The most dangerous people rarely look like a threat. They don't lead with aggression. They lead with a specialized kind of attention, appearing as the most focused, empathetic listener you've ever met. At first, they feel rare. They project a depth and an emotional intelligence that makes you feel instantly chosen. They have a talent for saying the exact right thing. They notice the detail everyone else missed. They validate the specific wound you've been hiding. This flawless mirroring bypasses your natural defenses. Because they look and sound like a profound connection, your brain stops looking for a predator. High-intensity attention is not a measurement of safety. Intensity can be manufactured in a moment. Character is only revealed through consistency. Vulnerability begins when you mistake emotional accuracy, the ability to see what you feel, for emotional safety. Notice how they harvest your history. They learn your deep wounds quickly, but they don't hold them with care. They store them as ammunition for the next conflict. They make you feel deeply seen, but only when you are actively providing them with what they want. If you pull back or stop giving them access, their care vanishes instantly. The warmth was conditional on your compliance. They can name your emotions with clinical precision while simultaneously ignoring your boundaries. They understand the lock, but they have no intention of respecting the door. They aren't building a bridge, they are gathering intelligence to establish control. They weaponize your own self-awareness. They use your habit of self-reflection to make you second-guess your own instincts. In a disagreement, the focus never stays on their behavior. They redirect every conflict back onto your trauma, onto your sensitivity, or onto your fear. Pay attention to how you feel when the conversation ends. If you leave feeling exposed and naked rather than understood, you are being handled. Think about your last interaction. Did you feel seen or just exposed? Protection starts by slowing down. Refuse to reveal your deepest history until trust has been earned over time. Watch what people do with small boundaries. If they cannot respect a minor no, they cannot be trusted with your major pain. A safe person does not rush your access. They do not punish your hesitation. They respect the space you create. A safe person never uses your history as a weapon to win a point. Keep the distinction clear. Someone can be 100% accurate about your feelings while being 0% safe for your heart. Use direct scripts to slow the pace. I'm not ready to share that yet. Or, I need time before I trust that. If they use your past against you, name it immediately. Do not use what I told you against me. Understanding your pain does not give them permission to define you. You can hear an opinion without surrendering a boundary. The pattern loses its power the moment you stop confusing the feeling of being understood with the reality of being safe. You stop giving full access to those who haven't earned it. You stop calling emotional invasion connection, and you stop letting someone use your story as a leash. Understood does not mean safe. If this brings someone to mind, trust that reaction. You don't need to rush to label them, just watch. Watch the consistency, and watch exactly what happens the moment you say no. Subscribe to MindDecoded, because the most dangerous people aren't always the ones who cannot feel. Sometimes they are the ones who know exactly what you feel.